What we're going to look at today is using the competency management function in VTA 7.0 primarily from the learner perspective. Did the same session last Tuesday, followed it last Thursday with a session on setting up competencies from a back office standpoint. And we'll do the same thing this week. So if you're interested after this session to see more about setting up the back office data to support competency assessment inside Learner, that's what we're going to do this Thursday at 3 o'clock. But again, today we're going to focus primarily on the learner side of the world. Again, the competency module really is a new function starting with VTA 7.0. So I wanted to start us off with a little bit of background, why we started making this move towards a more competency-based system. What is competency-based training? Where do you start? And then some sharing of really vocabulary. So that when we're talking about competencies versus proficiency levels and profiles versus assessments, we're all on the same page. Then we'll make a transition over into Learner itself and start looking at going through, first from a supervisor perspective, looking at a student's competencies, what's been assigned to him or her, what are those proficiency levels that have been defined, the target behaviors there, completing an assessment, and then going the next step to, if someone is assessed and they have an area for improvement, what can I do to assign them a personal development plan, either a course, a task, or some kind of resource, and certainly some combination of any of those items to help build their skills. Then we'll bounce over and look at the same data from a student perspective. So I can go in, see the assessments that have been done on me by an assessor. I can go through, do a self-assessment if I'm given that access, and then also see the personal development plan items that have been assigned, and if those things allow me to complete on my own, or to mark as complete, I can do that. Then we'll follow up with any questions and answers in the next hour or so. So really, the things that what I've seen as an industry trend and what has driven us is a much larger focus on, especially technical training folks, moving to a competency-based system, or we've had competency-based focused for so long in things like soft skills, supervisory skills, leadership skills. Seeing more and more, really when it comes to technical training, I say, gosh, you have to go out and in some way observe a person performing the job that they do and signing off that they're a competent person in that job. Some of that driven by regulation. There's a lot of competency-based training requirements or in the North Sea. So you see a lot when I'm working in Norway and Aberdeen. A lot in Canada and Australia. Both have taken a very strong push on the competency side. I see it more and more now in the U.S. The other piece of that is not just looking at it from a regulatory standpoint, but also the fact that there's a limited pool of employees everywhere. We really have to focus on talent optimization. You waste a lot of time giving a broad brush training approach if we really want to hone in and target just the skills that someone needs to be successful in their job, and really looking at a much more personal development plan for them. The final thing is, again, more of a business kind of driver, and that's building a true inventory of employee skills. So that could do things like supporting succession planning and those kind of tasks, but also worked with a group here a while back that was really looking at managing competency-based training from the standpoint of being able to assign people to project teams more nimbly than their competitors. So again, being able to see across my employees and what their actual skill levels are, how they perform. So industry trends have driven a lot of this. We spent about the last 3 years working on this model. This module was first rolled out back in January for very limited kind of group. And the focus, again, is the competency-based training. So competency, just there at a base level, any kind of skill, knowledge, attitude, behavior that's required to be successful in a role can be used to drive hiring and development. And competency-based training is one that's really tied to job performance. So I want to see how a person performs on the job and then assign them developmental tasks based on their performance gaps. Again, really to try to meet an ideal standard there. So again, some of the question back is, what's the effect on role-based training? Well, we've traditionally operated, we as RISC, and that's building things like job title-based training, team-based training, where for this group of employees, these are the courses they need to take, this is the running pressure frequency for those courses. That training need still exists, clearly. Fundamental training, regulatory training, training on specific tools and equipment people will use on their job, they have to have. A lot of times I consider those really the table ante, the table stake for being able to fill a role. Where the competency-based element really augments that and helps move from what does it take for me to be qualified in my job to what is really the ideal performance that I want someone to be exhibiting on the job. Now, it's taken a long time to do this, and worked with a group here over this last couple of years that truly spent 10 years, 9 years working on their competency program before they ever put anything onto the computer, just laying it all out on paper, defining their work. I think that's a bit of an extreme case, but it is a lot of work. It really takes looking at the tasks that employees do in their job, and then what are the behaviors that are associated with that task, so you can start outlining what those competency profiles look like and what are the proper proficiency indicators that someone's going to exhibit if they are a performer in that role. Again, where to start, really looking at job analysis and what someone does, and then deciding what to exclude, and then mentioning some of those more baseline kind of training functions. Just two more slides here. We'll bounce over into the system. From a system standpoint, from a vocabulary standpoint, talked about competencies. We'll look at competencies and grouping competencies. But really the scale that I use to measure competencies across is what I'm going to call proficiency levels. That could be something like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. It could be novice, a basic application, a skillful application, a mastery, an expert kind of levels. Something to think about. We talk about this a little bit more in the Thursday sessions when we get into back office data. But again, proficiency levels, really that scale that I'm going to measure everyone against, whether it's a 3-point scale, a 5-point scale, all those things are configurable. But something to think about going into this whole process is the more robust my scale, the wider my scale, then the fewer competencies ultimately I have to have, because I can have one competency that has a broader range of exhibitable behaviors there, versus a more narrow scale that requires me to have more competencies focused at specific job levels. Performance indicators are really tied back to proficiency levels. If I have a supervisor, an assessor, and I say, all right, rate this person 1 to 5 on their ability to operate a forklift, it would be nice if I gave them some kind of performance indicator that said, all right, if they can do a pre-operation safety check, they're a level 1 performer. If they can do an advanced site assessment and planning and doing some kind of intricate work, maybe they're at a skillful application level. So performance indicators, really just those observable behaviors that we can tie back to a proficiency level to help an assessor assess whether or not a person meets that level. And again, one of those things that I've always found difficult in soft skills assessment, because you'll have competencies like effective communication skills. And it tends to be very, very subjective, at least on the technical training side of the world. You have the ability to put some kind of performance indicator in that helps you drive a person to a particular proficiency level. Because when I have assessed someone, and again, this really moves us more into supporting the assessors and the students, is when someone has been assessed and you determine that they need to improve their skills, what do I do to help build that confidence? And some of the things inside VTA you think of as traditionally a course, right? I have a gap in my performance, I need to go to a course. But there are a lot of things outside of courses that can help build confidence as well. And one of those might just be developmental tasks. You know, if I need to improve my skills in technical writing, then you could have me draft the next 5 weeks of departmental staff notes to go out, or if I needed to improve in presentation skills, maybe I should team teach with someone who's really a star performer in presentation skills. So again, tasks, courses, the last thing, and really more of a almost a catch-all area of resources. It's all those things that are that exist out there that can help someone, like a website, like a book, like a subject matter expert, a mentor. Again, very, very user-definable in a VTA world, but you can build a library of resources in your course catalog area of VTA now to tag those resources with competencies that they support. Even though they're not really courses, I'm never going to go say, hey, I've completed this website. It's just a matter of being able to provide one more tool in the toolbox for people as they try to build their confidence. So with that, the final piece where all these things get tied together is really in profiles. And we're going to use this as a transition point over into VTA itself. A profile is very, very similar to a list of job title training requirements, whereas a job title is where all the training that's required. For a profile, let me say for a role, these are all the competencies that it takes to be successful in that role, and this is the target performance level, whether it's that mastery level, or it's a novice level, or it's beginner level, so that I can have those assigned to students, and then assessors can come in and deem whether or not someone has met that target level. And I try to be very sensitive in using the term assessor versus just supervisor, where you traditionally think of in your HR, your soft skills kind of competency assessments, because I think a lot of times, especially in technical training, you have people whose supervisors may not be qualified to assess their skills. If I'm a crane operator, and my supervisor is a maintenance manager that does not necessarily operate a crane, there's only a base level of skill that person will be able to deem me as competent on. So I might have some people that are non-supervisors that are really more named assessors. So with that, what I'm going to do is bounce over into VTA itself. I'm going to go into the learner side of the system first. So this is just a demo learner system. I'm already logged in as Lisa Boss here. So as I go into my learner, you can see that her name is at the top of the screen. If you've not seen the 7.0 learner system, again, we're going to have some webinars a little later this summer, early fall, on different 7.0 features. But one of the things that you'll see over there, the new competency, my competencies and my development plan areas that we're going to focus on today. My approvals is also a new one, as is this cool little wish to-do list that lets me see different areas of the system that I need to get into to work. But here, I logged in as Lisa Boss, and she supervises Richard Arno. So I'm going to click on Richard Arno and go take a look at his competencies. So first thing the system does, it goes out and says, all right, what competencies is he assigned? What's the target level for those? It pulls back all my historical data. So you can see here, I have my competencies organized into groups. Mechanical skills, I've got construction activities, mobile equipment skills, so I have a competency for carry deck crane operation, a competency for forklift operation, personal effectiveness, I have a competency called integrity. I have another competency called interpersonal skills. And what we're going to do is work through those. From a user interface standpoint, I like these groups and the way these panels work because I can see at a glance what my assessor has assessed me and how I've assessed myself, or if I've assessed myself. And then if I'm going back in and reassessing someone, I can see pretty quickly and easily whether or not they've met all of the competencies inside that group. I really see this as a good future direction for the plan pages inside Learner as well. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open up this mobile equipment area and just talk about a couple of the different things on the screen here. My competencies: carry deck crane operation. There first, another one there for forklift operation. It gives a quick description. I can see the last time I was assessed by an assessor back on 8/12, so a Monday ago. It was Lisa Boss, the same person logged in as now. That's why I have the opportunity to edit. I can see the comments that she made there. If that student had assessed themselves, I would see that student's last assessment. So here for forklift operation, Richard Arno, the student himself, back on 5/15, gave a self-assessment that says I've practiced and improved my skills. Right? So you can go in and see that kind of information. This is just a tooltip. If you see that eye on the screen, that pops up a little bit more information there. So if I want to give a new assessment, what I can do is come over and see as I float over the buttons on my proficiency level scale, I can see that the ones that are above my target level, that's marked in green, are marked with a star there, are green, and if I'm below, it shows up in red. If I'm interested in seeing what are the proficiency indicators that correlate to each of those levels, I can click on that guy. It's going to open up a window. I'll scroll down here a little bit. So it'll say basic application for this carry deck crane operation. I can prepare transportation or cargo for transfer, calculate safe working limits at an immediate level. I can sling and unsling cargo, I can strap and unstrap goods. Mastery level, I can plan and calculate critical lifts. Again, these are just absolute sample items that are pulled together, but the idea is I want to have some kind of demonstratable behavior that a supervisor or an assessor can look at and say, this person really meets this level. From there, they can go through and set a next assessment date. Now, if I'm assessing someone high above their existing level, it may not be necessary, but I can give a comment. I can also move on to setting up development plan opportunities for them. So I'm going to click that More button, and this is where I build the development plan items that are really unique to that person. So here, if I wanted to add some comments, area for improvement, I could set my next assessment date. I would say that we'll come back in a month and do another assessment. And then what are the plans I'm going to set forth for that person to help build their skills? Well, I can assign them a task. I can assign them a resource. I can assign them a course. Of course, I could delete because these are all things that I'm editing myself. I'm going to add a course first because it just makes sense thinking about training there. And for this point, I could search my course catalog. I type in an area or subject code, which I'm never going to know, or I can hit select course. That just opens up my course search. Now, this is the same course search that you'd see if you clicked on the search button up in VTA Learner, but there's a search tab, there's a browse tab, and then there's this new competency tab. And what this does, assuming I have courses tied back to different levels of competency, here I have my awareness, my basic application, my intermediate, my mastery, and you see that this forklift video helps provide awareness level training. At the basic application to intermediate level, I have a crane safety course, I have a forklift inspector course, I have a forklift qualification course, and then I have this aerial lift course that helps support me through up to a mastery level. Again, generally, these are things that support my development through versus saying that my level of competence there. So if I want to pick this forklift inspector course, I'll just click on that guy. Again, could have searched for it any other way. I can say that it's critical, developmental, recommended. Again, these are importance level that you define really as a company. What's my assignment date? So I'm using today's date. That's the date that I'm giving you the assessment and saying that I'm assigning this to you today, and I'll give you a target completion date. I'm going to match it to this month. And say, okay, why is this assignment date important? If you're used to working with requirements in VTA to this point, you know that my training history satisfies a training requirement, and unless there's a refresher frequency on it, then I don't have to take that course again. Having it anywhere in my history would satisfy that requirement. Having an assignment date here, because this is a personal development plan, saying that this person is weak in this particular skill, needs this course to help build that skill. I'm ignoring anything they've done before that assignment date. So they could have taken that course last week or last month. But I'm saying based on my observation today, this is something they need to take. So the assignment date becomes particularly important here. And then the target date really gives the student something to target and let you assess whether they've fulfilled that development plan activity. Completion date here you see is grayed out because this is a course and it takes course history to satisfy or to give a completion date for a course. So I'm going to hit OK there. That's going to bring me back to this plan area, and I'm going to take a look at the two others. Starting back on the other end, I could just assign them a task. So here for this carry deck crane operation, I might say that you need to unload 5 trucks. I'll say the importance is developmental. My assignment date, I can give a target date. Again, so I'll just bounce that out a little bit to the middle of next month. Completion date, now this one is an editable field because this is a task, and as a supervisor I might be able to come in and edit that, or I can say let the student just credit themselves. When they've completed those 5, they can go in and do their own update. And here I might say use forklift for unloading next 5 trucks. Again, just providing some additional information there. But all it is a task, something I'm saying that I'd like you to do to help build your skill. The last item there is resource. And again, resource. In this demo system, I've set up some resources for books, some resources for subject matter experts. You build this list, similar to building a list of requiring entities, say, inside VTA Administrator. And here, I can search for a resource by its name, but I'm going to select out of my search window here. And again, works very, very much like that browse for courses by competency, where I can come in and say, show me the things that support carry deck crane operation, or I'll say forklift operation, or for that matter, I could change this to say personal effectiveness and integrity, or interpersonal skills, and see what other resources that I may find. So I have a team leader manual that helps support the competency customer focus. So I'm going to bounce back to my mobile equipment carry deck crane operation and use this manual. Again, just a book. I can put an importance level, an assignment date, a target completion date, and again, if I want to allow the student to credit themselves, I can do that. So just assigning them a resource, something that they need to do and complete as they bounce through. So I'm going to hit save here and go back to my assessment. One of the things I wanted to do before I moved on to looking at a student view and development plan is open up some of these other panels. If I open up personal effectiveness here, you see I have that integrity item and interpersonal skills. Well, I can do an assessment on the interpersonal skills. I don't even have the option of doing it for the integrity area because I'm not authorized to assess that competency. Again, this is that place where I can go through from a system setup standpoint and say, who can or who is qualified to assess each particular skill. And even though I was qualified to assess their interpersonal skills and some of their mechanical skills, for this integrity skill, there is someone that has been identified as a named administrator, that needs our named assessor that can do that assessment. I can also limit the level to which someone can assess based on for a particular proficiency. So I can say that this person can only assess up to an intermediate level, while this person can assess up to, say, an expert level. So again, just different functions there. I'm going to go ahead and commit those changes. So now things have been saved there. You can see my new updated date for my carry deck crane operation. And if I want, I could go on and pick my next student, do their assessment. What I'm going to do, though, instead of looking at Richard's development plan from here, I'm going to log out. I'm going to come back into the system as Richard himself. Again, back under this My Learner area, I can see my competency area, I can see my development plan. Now, as I come in as a student and I look at my competencies, now here these max are ones that my supervisor just assessed me on. Only a couple differences on this screen, and they're fairly subtle. First, we don't put a picture of the student when they're looking at their own screen, because you assume that they know what they look like. And then here, my only options are use self-assessment as opposed to an assessment. So we kind of change the order of those guys. And if I do a self-assessment, I don't have the option of assigning myself personal development plan items. That's really something that comes from from the supervisor side there. So I can save and commit those guys. You see my flags turned green now because I've said that I'm proficient in everything that's inside that particular group. Again, just coming in, doing a self-assessment, something that some groups will do, some groups will not. One of the things I think is critical, though, from an employee standpoint, is I want to see my development plan. And you see that same theme of using the accordion panel here is used. So I can see things that are due in the next 30 days and things due in the next 30 to 60 days. If I completed that course before its target date, so here it was assigned on 8/13, I took it on 8/13, so my target date shows up as 9/25, and it's in green. That was a task that was done. If I have something that has a target date that expires, then those things will show up in red on everything. They're in red yet, since they're not past due. Courses, you enter my type, are listed out with a course code. Things like tasks, things like resources, if I find any of those guys, will not show up with a course code. Clearly, there's something that needs to be done, but I'd be able to complete possibly on my own. And that's where I'm going to hit this carry deck crane operation task. This is one where I said I want you to use a forklift unloading the next 5 trucks, and I could click to give myself credit for that item. If I log out and I come back in as, Lisa Boss, and go to look at Richard's record, you see that I should have a completion on that guy, what I did there. But we'll be able to see any of those activities as well. And then here at the top, the other thing I can do is I can group these in different ways. I group this by by competency groups. So here are my mechanical skills versus here are my mobile equipment skills. By importance levels, again, these are the things that you define, or break those out by profile itself. And right now, he's assigned to just this one profile skills construction label that has all those all those tasks associated with them. So, again, just a way to go through, allow a supervisor and assessor to complete that competency assessment, assign those developmental plan items to a student, and then let a student go back through, see the development plan items assigned to him or her, complete the items if they have the ability to do that, and then perform any self-assessment. So really everything on the learner side of the world from the competency module there. Of course, all this data gets driven from the administrator system, and that's what we'll look at on Thursday, and I've got some recorded sessions of these webinars we'll be posting as well to take a look at those back-end setup items for getting rolling with the competency system. And a couple things before I break open into some question and answer time here. As far as putting it in action, there's a lot of layout work in advance, something that you might want to take in smaller bites as you go through, but certainly consider piloting before I joined RISC, some of this work, and we focused on very specific groups of employees. So we do 2 years of engineers and their assessments. So looking at those gaps and determining what's the ideal performance. And a lot of that is required only to help hone your own processes. It takes a lot of partnership between supervisors or assessors and the employees they're assessing, and a lot of guidance and support to the assessors. You really are making a pretty cultural fundamental change if you've been in much more of a prescriptive training mode to this point, where you push out training requirements and people come through and take those to say, gosh, you not only have to work together, but you have to work together and talk about performance and what are the tasks and things that you can do to help build that performance. It's a lot more frequent touch. You can't treat training or competency-based training programs like you do annual performance reviews, where take a look and give you feedback one time a year, and then it's over and done. It really does require an ongoing kind of a short cycle reassessment phase, and you have to provide a lot of assistance to those assessors initially, especially on the technical side of the world. What are the resources that they can use to help someone build their competency? How do they set those developmental goals? What information is in your course catalog, for instance, to help them identify whether or not that course is really a valid option for those employees? And the results really are to help you move towards a performance standard. It can help with succession planning, hiring strategies, all of those good things. So just kind of my final thoughts. And we'll open up here with about 20 minutes left for some questions and answers. Is you've got to dedicate the time and energy to do this and to be successful. So I mentioned that I worked on a project. We took 23 engineering jobs and worked on them for 2 years to define what the tasks were required of that job and what would be developmental activities to help get there. I mentioned the other folks that I worked with that spent 9 years on working with a series of tasks. So again, both fairly extreme cases, but you do want to focus on really what matters and putting these kind of competency models together, how your competency is going to assign to roles inside your organization. There are a ton of commercially available products out there. The IHRDC has some. Connexo, which is an IBM company, has a host of models. There are a lot you can find, and clearly those ones for construction activities I pulled from kind of public domain pieces of information. There's a lot of stuff that has been published in Canada and in Australia that you can use, especially in areas like healthcare. So certainly a good place to start. I think most of the time the jobs are unique enough and organizations are unique enough. You can require some honing there. But start with some of those commercially available models. Focus on the jobs that have the greatest impact, because again, my purpose is to help shape employee performance towards an ideal inside a job. And then they really have to support the cultural change that's required to get folks to take on the extra work, in light of everything else that they're asked to do, and help do these assessments to participate in this whole process. So lots of things there. Additional information. So don't hesitate to ping me directly if you're interested in making the migration to 7.0. We've been scheduling and migrating folks fairly regularly now for the last several weeks. So get a notice into the support desk here at RISC. We can get the process moving forward for that. And with that, I am going to unmute the lines and try to bounce back over into the system itself. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to